Instead of PIN numbers, they simply had iris scans. And as the person walked up to the ATM, immediately the camera was able to tell who it was. And a voice would come out. Welcome to Nations Bank, Mrs. Jones. Welcome to First National Bank, Mr. Smith. It could recognize you as you walked up to it. They tested 1,995 people for the iris scan. Now there's a camera inside, and it's looking at you. 1,995 people. Only one was not recognized. Now let me tell you why. That individual was told to dirty up his eyeglasses. See, this can see even through your sunglasses, even through your eyeglasses, into your eye from a distance. So this person, you know, smeared some junk on his eyeglasses and it couldn't see who he was. And thus, that's how we're going to be able to get away from the beast, right? We all wear dirty eyeglasses in the last days. Only makes good sense. Now, here's an article that I think is very fascinating. This is from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, but it's the Knight Ridder newspapers out of Washington. It says, DNA databanks.USA. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you thought it was just unique. Just guys like O.J. That's the only ones they wanted DNA, or a few of these criminals. Hey, they want your DNA. That's right. They want your DNA to be in a data bank. And they're already spending millions, maybe billions of dollars secretly to establish DNA data banks across America for your blood. They are blood suckers. And they want it. La chupacabra at work here. Well, let me read what this says. This is very fascinating. It says, thanks to the O.J. Simpson case, just about everyone knows a substance called DNA can identify criminal suspects with unusual accuracy. What most people don't know, I'm reading now right from the article, what most people don't know is that a nationwide system of DNA databanks is rapidly being built. It already contains blood samples from millions of Americans, whether or not they have been involved in a crime. Did you go for a physical recently? Did they take a blood sample? Maybe the laboratory sent your DNA over to the DNA data bank. Did you have a baby born in the hospital? Maybe they took a blood sample. Were you in the military? They're requiring all military people to give DNA samples. What for? Well, they have their reasons. Let me give you some reasons. Stop terrorism. Identify suspected terrorists or potential terrorists. But I began to think, back to this chart again. And I remembered, and by the way, that's what Dr. Crusoe and Dr. Hilaire said. This will be a wonderful tool to stop terrorists from traveling freely throughout the world. But I began to wonder, there is the mom and the dad and the little boy and the little girl. And they said this UBC and this system is even for little babies. And I couldn't remember reading in the Kansas City newspaper or the Austin American-Statesman anything recently about a little baby that escaped from a hospital maternity ward and committed some kind of a horrible terrorist act. But we're going to make sure we track these little babies, just in case there is a very precocious 6-month-old out there that wants to do another kind of federal bombing or something. Right? Well, you say Americans would never buy this system.
We already paid for it.
Yeah, you've already paid for it, and most people don't even know it. Well, let's just look at facts. I believe people will line up to get their card. I believe people will say, of course, this is a solution to this chaos, these horrible things that are occurring. Let me give you some examples. Just recently, I bet you've heard of some of these in the news. National data banks are needed. More controls. We need to develop a security of a subculture of security, said one Senate investigator. I mean, Clinton says we need a national registry to track deadbeat dads. Well, hey, These guys don't pay child support. Deadbeats. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Let's have a national database. Let's track these scoundrels. Who could be against that? And then, of course, they're child molesters and sex offenders. They go from state to state and sometimes get away with it. Hey, let's have a national database. Who could be against that? In fact, I'm sort of for Bill Clinton's name being in the sexual offenders database. Gun control. Come on, guys. The Constitution is old-fashioned. And we need gun control. In fact, not only the Brady Bill, that's 5 days. No, we need a national identification center and instant check. That's what Bob Dole said. Instant check. You go to buy a gun at a gun shop or a rifle. Maybe you're a hunter, maybe not. Maybe you just need to protect yourself in your home, and you go to buy a gun, and they go to the computer, and they look up your name. Uh-oh, there's a little asterisk there. He visited a Christian bookstore. He bought a Circle of Intrigue just last week. We can't give you a gun. You're one of those, you've got an infection, a disease, Armageddon mentality. It's a new diagnosis, number 2300A by the American Psychiatric Association. You actually believe the government is out to get you. Somebody told me last night, I mentioned that a Gallup poll showed that 80% of Americans don't trust their own government.
Amen.
And the guy said, that poll's not accurate. I thought a liberal was in the crowd, you know. I said, why do you say that, sir? He said, because the other 20% lied. They were afraid of the government. And I thought about it. It's true. I mean, some poller calls you don't even know and calls you on the phone, says, do you trust the government? What are you going to say? Hey, maybe it's the FBI calling me. Oh, yeah, I trust him. Oh, yeah, I love him. You know, absolutely. I love writing that 1040 and sending off a check every April 15th. Your guys are great. Maybe the guy at a point. Well, think about that, though. Every time there's some kind of a serial killer or a mass murder, suddenly the cry goes up. I mean, I didn't quite understand it. The Oklahoma City bombing occurred, had nothing to do with guns, but suddenly they said, hey, let's have more gun control. Sort of interesting, isn't it? Well, just think about it. Another issue that we can solve if we have this gigantic computer database and everybody on it and give you ID cards. Immigration problem. Now, every good liberal in Washington is concerned about immigration. Aren't they? I mean, Senate Bill 999, sort of reversed to 666, but Senate Bill 999 was introduced this session by Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. She's a Republican. It was endorsed by Senators Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein of California, liberal Democrats. They all want to stop this Mexican invasion and all of these foreigners coming in. Now, this is very curious to me. And by the way, Senate Bill 999 requires a national database and every American being issued a biometrics ID card. That's right. Barbara Feinstein said we need that national database instantly, right now. And I thought back to 4 years ago. Now, I'm not a Pat Buchanan fan, but remember when he was the Republican convention saying we need to stop illegal immigration, we need to do something? And people like Feinstein and Boxer said, oh, what an intolerant bigot. He's trying to stop our wonderful Mexican friends coming over. Oh, what a terrible crud this guy is. We need a multicultural nation. But suddenly, 4 years later, they're saying, oh, yes, let's stick it to these illegal immigrants. Man, let's have everybody have an ID card with a smart chip in it. Absolutely. We're all for stopping illegal immigration. We're all against multiculturalism. Sure.